Good Wednesday evening. It is January the 10th, 2018, and this is an updated video on our impending winter storm that is going to be moving into the area on Thursday night and Friday morning. Many of you watching this video are probably watching it on Thursday morning, but there will be another update on Thursday night just to get some of those last-minute words in before this system actually moves in, at least the wintry side of it. We're going to start out with those highlights of which is going to start out with rain, and that is going to begin on Thursday evening. Now, as we go into the overnight hours on Thursday night into early Friday morning, things begin to change rapidly. A cold front moves through. Our temperatures drop anywhere from around 60 to anywhere in the lower half of the 30s to upper 20s in around 2 to 3 hours. So a rapid drop in temperatures, a flash freeze is going to happen. So all of the rain that came on Thursday evening will freeze on the roads, and then once that freezes, then any additional rain falling is going to freeze as well, and that's when the freezing rain is going to officially begin around 1 a.m. This is just to take as a grain of salt, but I'm giving you a general time frame. I feel pretty confident about these times. The models have began to move the colder air in at the surface just a little bit quicker, so that means that we're going to see an earlier arrival in some of those rain to freezing rain changeover times. That freezing rain, it will quickly change over to sleet. I do not anticipate the freezing rain to last very long. While it will be very heavy rain, I do not think that it is going to last that long, but it will definitely make an impact on our roads across the region, and they will be deteriorating very quickly, especially once this sleet begins to build on top of those icy roads around 3 a.m. on Friday morning. That sleet should begin to pound the area. Very heavy sleet is possible as well. Now, snow is up in the air at this point. Right now, I do not think that it is anticipated. I really haven't been buying into the idea of snow coming in with that second wave that is possible to form on Friday afternoon and evening. So this is still low confidence right now. We'll wait and see what the models show on Thursday, but just right now, the models have really began to move that area of second low pressure off to our east, and they have really, every now and then they trend back west, but they continue to slowly trend east. So we just can't ignore that trend, and it is something that we're going to, us snow lovers, including myself, probably going to have to very angrily watch as that snow possibly moves just off to our east on Friday afternoon. Right now, I do not think that the sleet is going to move out quick enough for that snow to move in. I think that sleet is going to hang around for most of the morning on Friday and accumulate, and this is going to hamper any snow totals that were to form. Right now, though, it's still low confidence. So if you're a snow lover and you're watching this, do not give up just yet. I have already, but if you are a snow lover, there is still at least a little bit of hope in the air that there is something that forms on Friday afternoon. Nevertheless, cold air will plunge in during this storm, so temperatures will be dropping throughout the event. So if there were any snowflakes to fly, the snow ratios to liquid ratios would be very high. So there is going to be at least some positive signs for people who want that snow to accumulate. There would be very, very high snow to liquid ratios as dry, cold air moves in at the surface, and that would allow for some fluffy and dry snowflakes, which would accumulate a little bit better than some wet snowflakes. Slick roads will quickly develop on Friday morning. I do believe that every single school across the region is going to be canceled, at least our public schools, and this is something that I think is going to happen. Whether we see snow or not Friday afternoon, the ice is going to be the main impact on our roadways, and we'll start to look at that right here. Friday at 12 a.m., we're looking at that freezing line beginning to make its way through the region. So we're seeing that rain changing over to freezing rain. This would be around midnight on Friday morning, late Thursday night. The pink right here is freezing rain. This purple is sleet. We move into around 3 a.m. on Friday. This is the NAM model, and it moves that freezing line further to our south and east. Temperatures by this time would be in the upper 20s, and we're looking at sleet across the region. And you might think that because it's been so warm over the last day and going into Thursday as well, that none of this is going to stick. But once temperatures get into a certain range below freezing, just into the 20s, it really doesn't even matter. It's going to accumulate, and this is going to cause some problems. Now, the forecasted soundings are something that is going to be just a little bit more high-tech. I've showed them to you before, but we're going to take an in-depth look at them. Here is Friday at 12 a.m., the same model and the same time that we can expect that rain to begin to change over to freezing rain. We're looking at a thick, warm layer aloft. So going from the surface right here where my mouse is and going up, you're going higher up into the atmosphere. This highlighted line that I highlighted for you, this white line, is the freezing line. So if the red line, which is our temperatures, is below freezing or to the left of this line all the way down to the surface, then you can expect snow. But sometimes we have a warm layer of air aloft that sometimes kicks into the region, and this is going to cause that snowflake to enter into this warm layer to the right of that freezing line, which means it would be above freezing just off of the surface. That snowflake would melt, and then it would come back to the surface as just a regular raindrop, where at the surface by 12 a.m. temperatures will be at freezing or just below freezing. So that's where we get freezing rain. We move into around the 3 a.m. hour on Friday morning, and you notice that this thick layer of warm air aloft begins to shrink a little bit. So this is indicating that we might begin to see that change over to sleet as we go throughout the pre-dawn hours on Friday. By 9 a.m., this model already has precipitation out of the area, but if precipitation were to continue into the 9 a.m. hour, it is possible that we would begin to see some snow mix in if we still have precipitation around the region. That's another question, is how fast does this precipitation exit the area? So this is when we begin to see those temperature profiles all the way up and down the atmospheric column to the left of this line, or actually just flirting with it a little bit, would cause maybe some sleet to mix in as well, but mostly snow if that were a correct sounding at that time. Now, here's the second wave question or not. So I said the second wave or not. Confidence is high that second wave forms. Confidence is low where that low tracks, where that second wave tracks. If it were to form, then a heavy band of snow and sleet would set up across the region on Friday afternoon. And when I say if it were to form, I mean if it were to form close to our area. I am confident that this second wave is going to form, but I just don't know where this second wave is going to track. If this second wave were to track further away from our area, like most models are indicating right now, then the heavy snow band and sleet band that sets up on Friday afternoon, this would be around 3 p.m. going into the early nighttime hours on Friday. All of that would be off to our east, which is what I personally think is going to happen. But I'm going to show you right here that there are some other models that think otherwise. The Canadian model for Friday at 12 p.m. in the afternoon shows that we see some precipitation lingering across the region. That second wave begins to enhance that precipitation once again, and we see some snow moving into the area. Meanwhile, we have another model such as the Canadian. Well, this is still the same model, but we're showing you the 500 millibar Vortmaxes, and you see that second wave right here, and this is where I have drew the arrow to it. But meanwhile, we look at the NAM model, and it has nothing. We see that any rain, or rather any freezing rain, sleet, or snow would be off to our east by this time, and it has the low pressure center from that second wave well off to our south and east. So the NAM has no additional snow and sleet for Friday afternoon, and typically this is a more high-resolution model. It is typically going to be more accurate than the Canadian model, and the Canadian model doesn't handle winter storms very well. It likes to have too deep of cold air. Sometimes it switches it to snow quicker than usual, and sometimes it switches it to freezing rain, sleet quicker than usual because it has colder temperatures than what should be anticipated. So right now I'm buying the NAM. I think this is correct. I think that we see a lot of the precipitation shut down by around mid-morning on Friday. So most of our precipitation probably going to come in while you're sleeping early Friday morning, and we're not going to see much in the way of snowfall. And that's my forecast right now. But still, we're going to have another updated video on Thursday night just to see if things change before this precipitation moves in. But you can tell right here that this ice, this freezing rain, I do expect around 1/10 of an inch to 2/10 of an inch. Sleet is harder to accumulate, but we're going to have a very prolonged period, possibly more than 6 hours of sleet falling across the region. And this is going to accumulate to around 1/4 of an inch to 6/10 of an inch. And sleet, as it goes on the roadways, you think it's little balls of ice. It's almost like snow. It can easily be plowed, but it begins to refreeze and refreeze and refreeze as car tires go over it, and it eventually turns into just a solid glare sheet of ice. So it is almost just the same as ice, just freezing rain after people begin to drive over it several times. Snow right now, thinking around 0. Many of you I don't think are going to see any snow. To our east, around the Purchase area, eastern counties such as Marshall and maybe Callaway could see some snow showers on Friday afternoon form, but they would be very light. This is still an ongoing forecast. This is still going to change some. Please come back on tomorrow, Thursday night, and see the updated video on what this impending winter storm could have for our region. Things I am sure are going to change in the next 24 hours as we are still just a little bit more than 24 hours away from this event. This is beginning to come into crunch time when we begin to see models really beginning to hone in on specific areas and specific amounts. Right now, we're beginning to see that occur, but it's still a little bit back and forth. We just looked at two different models that have two different ideas when we're still coming into pretty close time frame with this storm. So models still don't agree just quite whole, and we're still watching for forecast changes as we go throughout the next 24 hours. The main focus is not on totals, but rather the impact. I have it right here. This is not going to be a very big impact as far as the totals are concerned, but it is going to be a major impact on the roadways. Ice, sleet is not good on the roadways, and you cannot drive in it. I don't care how good of a driver you are. So the snow is a little bit easier to handle, but I just don't think that we're going to see much of it. This is mostly an ice event, I think, and so as we go throughout the late Thursday night, early Friday morning hours, I think majority of this is going to be ice and sleet, and little of it is going to be in the form of snow. But we'll see. Still an ongoing forecast. I'll see you tomorrow night and see what changes are in store.